Imagine a world where springtime arrives with silence. No soft buzzing, no flashes of black and yellow darting between blossoms. A world where apple orchards fail to bloom with fruit, where coffee beans grow scarcer, and where wildflowers fade into memory. This is not a scene from a dystopian movie. It's a realistic possibility if bees, the humble pollinators upon which much of our global ecosystem depends, were to vanish. While it may sound like an exaggeration to say the fate of our food and environment rests on the wings of tiny insects, the science is clear. Bees are critical to life as we know it. Bees, especially honeybees and wild species like bumblebees and solitary bees, play a vital role in pollination. This process, in which pollen is transferred from one flower to another, allows plants to reproduce. While wind and other animals like birds and bats contribute to pollination, bees are by far the most efficient and industrious pollinators on the planet. Globally, over 75% of food crops depend to some extent on animal pollination, and bees are responsible for a substantial majority of this work. Almonds, apples, cucumbers, berries, avocados, pumpkins. The list of fruits, vegetables, and nuts relying on bees is long. Without them, crop yields would plummet and many plants would fail to reproduce altogether. So, what would happen if bees disappeared entirely? First and foremost, the agricultural sector would face unprecedented challenges. Farmers would be forced to rely on artificial pollination methods, such as using paintbrushes or mechanical pollinators. An expensive, labor-intensive, and ultimately unsustainable approach on a mass scale. Some countries like China have already resorted to hand pollination in regions where bee populations have collapsed. But this method is feasible only in small, high-value crops. Large-scale grain production might continue as wheat, rice, and corn are wind-pollinated, but many fruits, vegetables, and legumes would become scarce and dramatically more expensive. This scarcity would ripple throughout the global food chain. Consumers would see a sharp increase in food prices, particularly for fresh produce. Economies reliant on agriculture would suffer. Developing nations where pollinator-dependent crops like cocoa and coffee are a major export would face economic crises. Staple foods would remain, but the diversity, nutrition, and flavor of our diets would be severely compromised. Micronutrient deficiencies, already a public health issue in many parts of the world, would become far more common as access to vitamin-rich fruits and vegetables dwindles. The disappearance of bees wouldn't just affect our farms. Natural ecosystems would be devastated. Over 85% of flowering plants rely on animal pollinators, and bees are the primary workers in this process. Without them, wildflowers would vanish, upsetting the delicate balance of plant and animal interactions. Herbivores would lose key food sources, and predators that rely on those herbivores would in turn suffer. In forests, meadows, and even deserts, biodiversity would decline dramatically. The collapse of bee populations would trigger a chain reaction, leading to the extinction of other species and the loss of entire habitats. This environmental unraveling would take years, but once begun, it would be difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. There would also be profound cultural and emotional impacts. Bees are woven into the fabric of human civilization. They've been revered in mythology, used in medicine, and studied for their incredible behavior and intelligence. Entire industries, from beekeeping and honey production to apitherapy and cosmetics, would vanish. Symbolically, the disappearance of bees would serve as a stark indicator of humanity's failure to live in harmony with nature. It would signal not just ecological decline, but a deep disconnection from the natural systems that sustain us. In economic terms, the stakes are enormous. The global economic value of pollination services provided by bees and other insects is estimated to be over $200 billion annually. Losing this natural service would impose huge costs on farmers, governments, and consumers. It would also require expensive investments in technology to attempt to replicate nature's efficiency, efforts that may ultimately fall short. Some companies are experimenting with drone pollinators and robotic bees, but these are in early stages and lack the adaptability, scalability, and ecological sense of their living counterparts. Public health would be affected too. Beyond the nutritional consequences, a reduction in plant diversity could lead to the loss of many medicinal plants. Bees also help pollinate crops that are turned into pharmaceutical ingredients. Moreover, declining green spaces and diminished biodiversity are linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. The disappearance of bees would erode the quality of life on many levels, including our connection to green, living spaces. So why are bees in danger? The reasons are multifaceted, involving a combination of habitat destruction, pesticide use, climate change, disease, and industrial agriculture. Urbanization has replaced fields and meadows with concrete and asphalt, eliminating the wildflowers and nesting sites bees rely on. Pesticides, particularly neonicotinoids, are toxic to bees and impair their ability to forage and navigate. Climate change alters blooming cycles, meaning flowers may not be available when bees emerge from hibernation. Parasites like the varroa mite and diseases such as colony collapse disorder continue to plague honeybee populations. The intensive use of monocultures in agriculture, which offer little in the way of nutritional diversity, further compounds the problem. If bees were to vanish entirely, these current problems would seem small in comparison to the ensuing crisis. That said, it's important to note that extinction isn't necessarily the most likely outcome. What is far more realistic, and already underway, is a steep decline in bee populations across the globe. This slow-motion catastrophe is harder to notice than a sudden collapse, but no less dangerous. It gives us a limited window to act. Efforts to save bees must be broad and coordinated, protecting wild habitats, planting pollinator-friendly gardens, banning or restricting harmful pesticides, promoting organic farming, and supporting local beekeepers are all essential steps. Individuals can play a role by growing native plants, reducing lawn chemical use, and educating others about pollinator conservation. Governments must enact policies that incentivize sustainable agriculture and habitat restoration. Corporations should be held accountable for practices that degrade ecosystems and encouraged to adopt bee-friendly practices in their supply chains. There are signs of hope. In many places, grassroots efforts have helped stabilize or even increase local bee populations. Urban beekeeping has gained popularity, with rooftop hives in cities like New York, London, and Tokyo, helping to raise awareness and produce local honey. Conservation organizations are working to reintroduce endangered species of wild bees, and some countries have enacted pollinator protection plans. But these actions must be scaled up rapidly. The future of our food, environment, and well-being depends on it. The broader lesson in this thought experiment, the disappearance of bees, is that even small, seemingly insignificant creatures can hold together entire ecosystems. Bees, with their tireless work and quiet presence, are essential threads in the web of life. Losing them would unravel more than just the crops they pollinate. It would jeopardize our ability to feed ourselves, maintain biodiversity, and preserve the health of the planet. This scenario also serves as a sobering reminder of the fragility of our relationship with nature. As human activity continues to alter the Earth's systems in unprecedented ways, the consequences grow more profound. Bees are just one example, albeit a powerful one, of how deeply interconnected all life on this planet truly is. We ignore these connections at our peril. To imagine a world without bees is to imagine a world in decline, a world where abundance is replaced by scarcity, where vibrant ecosystems fall silent, and where humanity is forced to confront the consequences of environmental neglect. But imagining this future is also a call to action. It's a chance to change course, to protect what remains, and to ensure that the gentle hum of bees continues to echo through fields and gardens for generations to come.